We have a new AI czar. That is right, Kamala Harris, who is the border czar that has never been to the border, is now the AI czar that has never seen or worked with AI. This will turn out swimmingly, I promise, and we will talk all about that, plus the events that led up to this in just a bit as we get started, after we get off Finance Today, so that'll be a little bit of fun. In other news, Russia now blames the US for the drone strike that happened in the Kremlin. Now, they're not coming out and saying right out that the US actually went in specifically, had the controls, and ran it themselves. They're saying that we did it with our proxy with Ukraine, but we'll be talking about that, what that means, and where we go from there. Kim Gardner steps down after much resistance from conservatives in her home state of Missouri, and Fox News comes out to remind us that she is a Soros-backed DA, and Kari Lake's lawyer must pay $2,000 in sanctions for saying that she doesn't believe the results of the 2022 election because we use the DOJ to go after our political opponents. Plus, we've got a bunch of stuff to catch up on from the last part of the week, and we have got a ton of stuff for things that I like and things that I hate. So strap yourselves in, get some snacks, get some popcorn, grab some friends, get some people in here for the chat, and we will see you on the other side of the title card. I was the one flying the balloons. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. This is your evening news, and ladies, drink free. We've got a bunch of stuff to go over here today, mostly because we have leftovers from the earlier part of the week. And this actually was a pretty slow news day today as far as news stuff on here, but we'll be getting to what we can get to from the past part of the week. And we're going to stop. I'm actually going to stop a little bit early at maybe 7:40 tonight from the main news before we go into things that I like and things that I hate, because there's a ton. There's a whole bunch of stuff on things I like and things that I hate today because, well, I'm actually not going to lie to you. A lot of it is left over from stuff that we had from Monday and that massive show that never wound up being massive because I spent the entire show talking about 3 topics. But we're going to get to as much as we can here today. We'll probably catch up a little bit more tomorrow as well on the stuff from the week here over on Contemporary. So strap yourselves in, get a snack, get some friends in here, get some people in here to talk about the live chat. We had a good crowd last night. We had a massively good crowd last night. We have the Mogwai here today. That's the only one that's chatting currently, telling me that, number one, he likes my Fallout shirt, and I also like my Fallout shirt. I love Fallout. Fallout is one of the better games that's actually come off of here. And, I mean, Bethesda's not going to have a writer's strike. Well, maybe they will, but you know, that's something that doesn't really change, and you know, mods will keep it young forever. And I also got a great compliment here because I am the best thing on Mogwai's TV. Now, mind you, it's thanks to the writer's strike, which I've got some stuff for the writer's strike on here today. We've not been able to get to that yet this week either. But thanks to the writer's strike, I am the best thing on TV. So get some more people in here because you don't want them to miss the best thing on TV, do you? All right, let's get started. Before we do, let's make sure you guys go check out great programming out there, such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Breckenhoff, who should be coming back very shortly now that school's going to be coming up and ending for him. Always a good, interesting channel to go look at there. The R-Rated Conservative, go check him out. Tweets by Brit if you prefer your commentary in tweet form, although there's some rumblings that Tweets by Brit will be coming back to the streaming stream, so that'll be kind of cool. I don't know how she's going to do it. I know that the last time she did it, she had to have friends with her. I don't know if that's going to be the same thing coming up here, but go check her out and follow the Twitter for updates. That is at TweetsMyBrit. If you're more into video gaming content, go check out Mr. Behavior, more into audio format platform. We've got the No Gimmicks podcast, and also go check out Silentcaster for either video game content or weekly news show there, or the Clown World Chronicles, which will be going live on Saturday. That's pre-recorded, so go check that out as well, and go check out all that great programming. Stop getting your news from people who wear suits that wear more, cost more than your houses. Rather, get your news from people who are just like you. Let's get into the main news and let's get started. All right, we are going to start, as we always do, looking at the finance on the Dow, which has not had a good week this week. This is 4 days in a row that it ended down, and yesterday being the only day this week that it actually had any up in its step here. The Dow ending at 33,127.74. That is down another 286.5 points, or 0.86%, so a little bit over 0.75% down on the day. Not at its lowest point. Its lowest point hitting 1% down on the day, but clawing its way back up to 0.86 to close on the day. Looking at your Bitcoin, which took a wild ride throughout the day, having a steady rise throughout the day before tanking back off just about midday, and then trying to claw its way back around and still not being able to make it here. Bitcoin is at $28,781 US. That is down $236 US and 70 US cents. Or again, that's another drop of just a little bit over 0.75%, 0.82 on the Bitcoin today. On the gas prices, on the west side, we've got one that's starting to come back down and meet the east side. The east side remaining at $3.30 for your gas prices of Madison, Wisconsin. The west side remaining mostly at $3.40, with one quick trip dropping itself down to $3.30 on the west side. Remember, these gas prices may not reflect your actual gas prices in your local area. Check your local listings to see what your trends are and what your gas prices are. We are looking at one single map to watch the trends and see what happens with gas in one isolated market. So that's what we see coming for that. Let's grab one on the markets from CNBC. Stocks close lower for a fourth day on renewed bank worries. Dow goes negative for 2023. That's right. We are now on our lowest point in 2023. From Ha-Kyung Kim and Darla Mercado. Stocks declined Thursday as contagion fears in the regional bank space were reignited. The Dow fell 286.5 points, or 0.86%, and at 33,127.74. The S&P slid 0.72, closing at 4061.22. The Nasdaq shed 0.49, ending the day at 11,966.40. So the Nasdaq dropped below a milestone. The S&P is sliding dangerously close, so we could start seeing a 3 of the first part of that digit again. And as Mogwai pointed out, 30,000 Dow. We could see that. I'm still waiting to see sub 10,000 Dow. That's what I want to see. As all the Twitter people out there say, no, you don't ever want to see that. Yeah, I do, because it'll be entertaining. The Dow turned negative for the year on Thursday, pulling back 0.06 year to date. Declines in Boeing, Disney, Goldman Sachs, and American Express shares dragged the Dow. Shares of PacWest tanked more than 50%. The decline came after news late Wednesday that the California bank has been assessing strategic options, including the possible sale. A person familiar told CNBC regional bank shares sold off hard, with the SPDR S&P Regional Bank ETF dropping more than 5%. Western Alliance tumbled 38% and saw trading halted multiple times due to volatility. Meanwhile, Zions Bank Corporation lost 12%. Yeah, that's going to be the next one down. Western Alliance and Zions Bank Corp are both going to be the next ones that we're going to be talking about here. Investors also digested the Federal Reserve's 25 basis point rate hike and commentary following its Wednesday meeting. Keith Apton, managing director at UBS Wealth Management, said that the volatility in the banking sector will help the Fed's mission of cooling down the economy. Yeah, but how many people is it going to take with it? How many people have to starve for you to say, oh, the economy is cool enough now, oh, we can stop doing rate hikes, instead of, stop spending the money? I think it's going to take care of the Fed's job. Regional lenders are going to have to constrain capital. I don't think that money is going to be flowing through the system nearly as easily as the back half of this year, and that indirectly is going to cool down the economy, which is ultimately going to do the Fed's job by bringing down inflation, said Apton. Midwestern dust storms, financial markets tanking, and a potential for a world war. Someone keeps adding mods to the simulation. I like that. That's funny. That's really funny. I like that one. Let's see. So I do not think the Fed will have to raise rates any further for the rest of this year. Yeah, they keep saying that, and we just keep coming into positions where they need to raise rates, so... although tomorrow's data on the jobs reading will be important to watch, he added. April's non-farm payrolls report is due Friday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, as well as numbers on the unemployment rate. That's going to start ticking up at some point, by the way, just so you know. It has to. Look at all the layoffs. We have thousands a day. The only way that they are not going to start ticking up is if we actually have honk honk and they're cooking the books to make the president look good. Speaking of layoffs, on the layoffs report, no new layoffs to report today, although Tim Cook is saying that that's going to be their last resort over at Apple. He's not going to do layoffs, but they're trying to find ways around that right now, so that actually might come down the pipes and nobody knows about it. This is from Ars Technica. Googlers angry about CEO's $226 million pay after cuts in perks and 12,000 layoffs. Yeah, that's actually fair. From John Brodkin. Following Google's layoff of 12,000 employees and other cost-cutting moves, employees are reportedly expressing anger about CEO Sundar Pichai's $226 million pay package. In the weeks since Pichai's annual compensation was made public, internal Google platforms have filled with conversations and memes slamming the CEO for taking a pay bump while slashing costs elsewhere, CNBC reported yesterday. CNBC's report said the internal memes shared by employees also criticized Google owner Alphabet's recent authorization of a $70 billion stock repurchase program, the same amount as last year. Pichai is the CEO of both Alphabet and Google. According to CNBC, one popular meme showed an image of Shrek character Lord Farquaad with the text Sundar accepting $226 million while laying off 12,000 Googlers, cutting perks and destroying morale and culture. It also included the Farquaad quote, "Some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice I am willing to make." Ooh, burn. The median Alphabet employee was paid $279,802 US in 2022. Although Alphabet lists Pichai's 2022 compensation at $226 million, most of it will vest over 3 years, and the amount paid could change. The total value was lower than the triennial award that he got for the previous 3-year period. So I'm going to talk about that for just a second. Now, it's hard for me to play armchair quarterback, Monday morning quarterback on something like this. But I can talk about, especially if I was in a huge position like that, but even as a small business owner and somebody who hopes to take on employees one day, also with people in my family who as well are business owners or have been business owners in the past, who themselves looked out for the people who were working for them. I worked back when I was at my poorest, back when I was cut to part-time, there was no opportunity for me to get a raise, I was cut in wages, and all kinds of things at my job. I was working part-time afterwards for my cousin doing lawn care in a business that he owned. And he paid actually quite well. Probably the only reason I didn't wind up homeless at the time. And I accepted because I didn't have really any other means to do so. Like, I had no means to come back and say, I can't take this, because trust me, I needed it. But in doing so, he was not paying himself. I have another cousin, that's actually his older brother, who is in the campground business, who again, at the same time, while he didn't really start taking on employees until he could afford to bankroll and pay them for the work that they did, I know that there have been years in the campground business where he went out without a base salary. Basically just living off what the campground had and his wife's pay to make sure that he made payroll for what little bit of payroll that he had. And that is the way the CEO is supposed to do that. I don't begrudge CEOs for getting X amount of pay for the work that they did and the sacrifices that they've made and the risks that they took being at the top of a company that could very well, by the way, drop at a moment's notice. I mean, the internet world is fickle. Yes, Google is on the top of everything and they're putting themselves in positions that they can stay up there, but realistically, Yahoo was at the top of the world not that long ago. You couldn't get on the internet without AOL not that long ago. And both of those tanked too. I mean, the internet business is fickle, and there's always the opportunity that Google will take a drop at some point, have a problem, or something better will come along, as Google did and took over AOL and Apple and a host of other things. But the point that I'm getting to with this is that, as they're pointing out, they're cutting jobs, they're cutting benefits, they're cutting costs, and Pichai is still taking a $226 million paycheck, personal paycheck, his personal salary, not his stock options. Like, they're listing it, that's his personal compensation, not his stock options, not the interest off of his stocks, not the interest off of his buildings, the things that he owns there, or the returns from capital gains from these things gaining or losing in the market. That is his base salary. I'm sorry to tell you, especially if I had those other things at my disposal. Capital gains, real estate, things like that, interest off real estate, things that I could rent out, things like that. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, if I was sitting in Pichai's position before I started cutting 12,000 jobs, I would go without a paycheck. I would go without compensation. Especially if I had means like that, where I could get my income from a litany of other things. Not just what my base salary is, which Pichai does. He has got options like that. Sundar Pichai can go without a paycheck for probably a good 10 years and not even have to worry about anything. Sell an asset off here and there, or collect the interest off of a rental home or a bank loan that he's put out, a bank that he owns, something like that. So what I'm going to say right off to that is, Sundar Pichai, you are the asshole. And that is our finance report for the day. Let's talk Kamala Harris and AI. From the Daily Wire to start. We can all relax. Kamala is on artificial intelligence safety duty now. Now, this article we're opening up with an op-ed. And I will give the same disclaimer I always give when I read an op-ed. This article is the opinion of Tim Meads. This article does not necessarily represent the opinions of the Daily Wire, even though it does. Does not necessarily represent the opinions of the Daily Wire, Contemporary, Turns of Pages Productions, or your host, J. Edgar. The opinions expressed in this article are the opinions of Tim Meads alone. Let's read. Everybody relax. Vice President Kamala Harris has now been placed on artificial intelligence safety duty by the Biden White House. On Thursday, Harris met with C-suite executives from Microsoft, Google, and a couple other artificial intelligence industry leaders. One can only imagine the insight Harris has to offer. Hey, speaking of my cousins, one of them popped in on the Instagram side briefly. Regardless, the Biden admin is now pledged to open 7 new AI research institutes with $140 million worth of funding to help ensure that AI doesn't get out of hand. Adam Connor of the Center for American Progress told the Associated Press, We're at a moment that in the next couple months will really determine whether or not we lead on this or cede leadership to other parts of the world as we have in other tech regulatory spaces like privacy or regulating large online platforms. Yeah, you get it, Mogwai. How can someone with no intelligence monitor artificial intelligence? It's a mystery. Others, such as tech guru Elon Musk, have said that AI could be more dangerous and life-threatening without proper oversight. So who better to take the helm and write our course than the Veep? When she isn't amazed by the wonder of yellow school buses or dazzled by the mystery of Venn diagrams, she's showing off the latest vinyl that she picked up from the local record shop. Let's watch.
Charlie Mingus, really one of the greatest jazz performers ever. One of my favorite albums of all time. Roy Ayers, Everybody Loves Sunshine. You know this one? It's so good. It's a classic. And then Porgy and Bess.
All right. She's got some good selections there, kind of running the gamut in terms of genres. While the vice president was happy to talk about her recent purchases, she ignored a shouted question about the debt ceiling.
Did that make it in the clip, or is that something that RNC is taking out of context? Let's go back to the beginning here.
Charlie Mingus, really one of the greatest jazz performers ever. One of my favorite albums of all time. Roy.
I can hear something in the background, but it's beyond these Secret Service agents.
Charlie Mingus, really one of the
and I can't make out what it is either. I love how the Secret Service vehicle is halfway out in the street too, by the way. That's amazing. She's the salt of the earth, this lady, and a deep thinker too. Kamala, of course, was put in charge of the border by Biden. What happened? Millions flooded into the country in record numbers. Then she was sent to Europe to meet with leaders to try to stop the Ukrainian-Russian war from escalating. We are now closer to nuclear doomsday than ever before. Now she's tasked with AI, preventing the real-world iRobot scenario based on her track record. We are screwed, and our Terminator overlords will be here before we know it. Hi, Skynet. This is fun. Here's an example of what AI can do for Harris. There's at least one thing Harris can use AI for, a new speechwriter. When she inevitably fires her current one, the word salad-prone vice president has gone through quite a few in her short time as Biden's right-hand woman. You can hardly tell the difference between AI and the real thing these days.
Today is today. And yesterday was today yesterday. Tomorrow will be today tomorrow. So live today. So the future today will be as the past today, as it is tomorrow.
Yeah, that sounds about like a Harris speech. She sounds drunk, though. Well, okay, I guess that does sound like a Harris speech, doesn't it? She does sound hammered, though, in that. Oh, here's the actual Harris.
So, I think it's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present, and to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past but the future.
See, I told you it sounded like one of her speeches. So there is the op-ed talking about Kamala on artificial intelligence duty. Let's talk a bit about what's happening there from the Dissociated Press. To start with, Biden and Harris meet with CEOs about AI risks. With no intelligence between the two of them, from Matt O'Brien and Josh Boak. Vice President Harris met on Thursday with the heads of Google, Microsoft, and 2 other companies developing artificial intelligence as the Biden admin rolls out initiatives meant to ensure rapidly evolving technology improves lives without putting people's rights and safety at risk. President Biden briefly dropped by the meeting in the White House's Roosevelt Room, saying that he hoped the group could educate us on what is most needed to protect and advance society. Yes, people who are about to make a whole bunch of money off of this technology, tell us about this technology. Let's not have an independent third party come into this. Let's just hear it from the people who stand to make billions of more dollars off of this. What you're doing has enormous potential and enormous danger. Like every time I fart, Biden told the CEOs, according to a video posted to his Twitter account. The popularity of AI chatbot ChatGPT. Even Biden has given it a try. What? Okay, this I need to see. As soon as that webcam clicks off at the end of the show tonight, I will be furiously searching for that clip. I need that clip in my life. Biden talking to AI. I need that clip in my life. Oh, man. Well, man, who do you think that the Dodgers are going to beat in 63, man? Sir, 1963 was 60 years ago. Hey, man, no, I remember that like that was yesterday. Good old Los Angeles, I think, man. What do you think of them brown people? Sir, we cannot answer that. Yeah, that helped, man. It's a great time for Sir, we can't understand you. I need that clip in my life. Let's see. White House officials said Thursday has sparked a surge of commercial investment in AI tools that can write convincingly human-like text and churn out new images, music, and computer code. But the ease with which it can mimic humans has propelled governments around the world to consider how it could take away jobs. They took our jobs! Trick people and spread disinformation. The Democratic administration announced an investment of $140 million to establish 7 new AI research institutes. Probably owned by Google, Microsoft, Apple, Tesla. Oh, there's probably 3 more I could think of right off the top. Facebook, that would be another one. Well, I guess Facebook doesn't have to invest in AI because they already have Zuckerberg. In addition, the White House Office of Management and Budget is expected to issue guidance in the next few months on how federal agencies can use AI tools. There's also an independent commitment by top AI developers to participate in a public evaluation of their systems in August at the Las Vegas Hacker Convention, DEF CON. But the White House also needs to take stronger action as AI systems built by these companies are getting integrated into thousands of consumer applications, said Adam Connor of the liberal-leaning Center for American Progress. Yeah, they tried to put one into my Snapchat and I blocked the damn thing. Yeah, Grant says, what the article really means is Biden and Harris met with people to solicit bribes. That is absolutely correct, and thank you for that. Some of the companies, including OpenAI, have been secretive about the data their AI systems have been trained upon. That's made it harder to understand why a chatbot is producing biased or false answers to requests or to address concerns about whether it's stealing from copyrighted works. I mean, we already know that it's biased because it's taking the bias of the programmers. That was to be expected. Companies worried about being liable for something like the training data might also not have incentives to rigorously track it in a way that would be useful in terms of some of the concerns around consent and privacy and licensing, said Margaret Mitchell, chief ethics scientist at AI startup Hugging Face. So, as far as AI goes, and I mean, I've done a lot of this. I'm probably going to release my Mega Man X argument again. It's a blog article that I wrote way back in, God, that had to have been 09, 10, something like that, maybe a little bit later than that. Talking about, especially when we come in with the iRobot thing, which is one of the things that they mentioned in this article, and the 3 rules of robotics. And, well, my argument, if you're familiar with the Mega Man X storyline, is that the entire storyline, the entire franchise, or that section of the franchise, deals with true AI robotics being put into bipedal machines that have the strength and the capability to destroy all of humanity in and of themselves without very much pushback at all. But after they started getting mass produced, then we came out to a point where, okay, now they're going maverick and they're turning against their masters, even though they have full free will, and that was always called a virus, and they were always called defective because they were able to make their own decisions about their human overlords. It was a point that I pointed out. The fact was, I don't know that it was necessarily a virus or a defective, or if it's just the fact because they're free thinking, their actual artificial intelligence, whether Sigma himself was just a smooth talking Malcolm X type figure saying that the oppressors need to be destroyed. That is what it is. I'm going to resurface that. I'm going to dig that up after the stream, and I'll put that in the Discord. But yes, they are out there, like Grant said, taking bribes. I bet you Mogwai knows what the Dr. Wily emote there. 80 million votes. Let's grab one from USA Today. Oh, is that the only one that I had on ChatGPT? I thought I had a second one. I guess I didn't. Okay. Well, we're moving on then. Professional broadcaster here. All right, let's talk Russia. From the USA Today, this is a live update, but I'm going to take the story talking about the headline here from John Bacon and Jorge L. Ortiz. Russia blames U.S. for alleged drone attack on Kremlin, considers retribution. Let's read on. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov blamed the U.S. on Thursday for what Russia claims was an assassination attempt by Ukraine targeting Russian President Vladimir Putin, and said retaliation options were being weighed. Well, we don't have to worry about Fallout because, we don't have to worry about AI because instead we're going to play Fallout in real life. Apparently. I hope I get ghoulified. Come here, smooth skin. Alright. Attempts to disown. Oh, Peskov. Attempts to disown this both in Kiev and Washington are, of course, absolutely ridiculous. We know very well that decisions on such actions and such terrorist actions are not made in Kiev, but in Washington. You know what this sounds an awful lot like? All the rhetoric surrounding the Steele dossier in 2016. Kiev has dismissed the allegations as a manufactured pretext by Moscow to justify massive strikes on Ukraine's battered cities. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby asked about Russia's claim on MSDNC's Morning Joe said Peskov is just lying. I can assure you that there was no involvement by the U.S., Kirby said. Whatever it was, it didn't involve us. Peskov declined to provide details on possible retribution, suggesting only well-thought-out steps that meet the interests of our country. Moscow has not presented any evidence of Ukrainian or U.S. involvement in the drone strikes, but it launched missile and drone assault on Kiev for the first time in 4 days. U.S. intelligence officials are still trying to determine who is behind the drone incident and are exploring various possibilities. An official who spoke on a condition of anonymity to discuss the sensitive matter told the Associated Press. Well, officials in the U.S. are still trying to determine who blew up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and I think most of us have figured that one out already. I think that one is pretty common knowledge at this point. The Washington-based Institute for the Study of War said several indicators suggest the strike was internally conducted and purposefully staged in an attempt to bring the war home to a Russian domestic audience and increase public support for more call-ups and other sacrifices. Yeah, you just keep telling yourself that. Moscow says its defenses shot down 2 drones attempting to strike early Wednesday on the Kremlin residence of Vladimir Putin, who was outside Moscow at the time and unaffected, according to his office. Ukraine denied involvement. So, that made this all interesting. Bring on the FEV, because it might be time to go play Fallout in real life. From CNN. A little bit more cope and seethe from this one. How the Kremlin drone attack hands Russia an opportunity. This is an op-ed from Jill Doherty. They call it an analysis. This is an op-ed. At first glance, it looks like a sci-fi movie. What appears to be 2 drones streaking across the night sky in Moscow, headed straight for the Kremlin, on target to hit the historic Senate Palace, the official residence of Vladimir Putin, which it looks like we can watch.
With your expert eyes, what do you see as the drone explodes right there?
Yeah, right there.
Wait, we watched this one yesterday. Never mind. We watched that one yesterday. We're not going to do that one. Suddenly, just as one passes the Russian flag flying atop the building, it explodes, raining fiery shards on the roof. The video first appeared in the early hours of Wednesday on Russian social media. The Kremlin was slow to react, eventually releasing a statement calling it a planned terrorist attack, a deliberate attempt by Ukraine to assassinate Putin, but presenting no evidence. The president was not injured, the Kremlin stressed, threatening that Russia reserves the right to take countermeasures wherever and whenever it deems appropriate. The denial from Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky was swift. "We don't attack Putin or Moscow, we fight on our territory." A former senior U.S. diplomat called that significant. After several previous mysterious attacks inside Russia, Ukrainian officials have wryly denied knowing anything about it. This, the former diplomat said, was definitive. If the apparent drone attack itself was surreal, questions about it happened, or how it happened, and what could come next were even more fantastical. Months ago, Russian authorities began mounting air defense installations on defense ministry and administrative buildings across Moscow. The Kremlin is one of the most heavily guarded government complexes in the world, next to our own, of course. Russia's border with Ukraine is protected as well. If these were drones from Ukraine, how did they evade detection? Did Moscow's defenses fail? Even more embarrassingly for the Kremlin, how did the drones get so close to the Kremlin? Russian state media, for the most part, are sticking to the precise wording of the Kremlin statement on the attack, as well as broadcasting daytime pictures of the Kremlin, showing things that are back to normal and that the president is hard at work. All signs Russian propagandists are having difficulty finding the right message to explain how their president was almost assassinated. Would Russia carry out the attack itself? In '99, just months before Putin was elected president, for the first time, Russia was hit with a wave of apartment bombings that killed more than 300 people, in which then Prime Minister Putin decided to justify launching the Second Chechen War. His tough approach helped him win the presidency, but suspicion still lingers about who is really behind the bombings. With the apparent drone attacks, no one died, and the Kremlin's vaunted security looked feeble, but it gives the Kremlin an opportunity to rally Russians to support Putin against those who would harm him. And again, I mean, this is all realistic conversation that you would normally have in a situation like this. I'm not denying that there's a possibility that Russia was the one that launched this. The problem that I have is how much effort they're going into to try to wash Ukraine's hands of it, because there is an equal opportunity that it was the Ukraine, and yes, there is an equal opportunity that it was us. But there are a lot of people who are scrambling, just running to absolve both Kiev and DC. Whereas if this was coming the other direction, all the propaganda would be saying it was definitely the evil other person. So that's what's happening in Russia. Let's talk St. Louis. From the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, St. Louis prosecutor Kim Gardner to resign June 1st after weeks of resistance from Katie Hull, Aaron Heffernan, Kurt Erickson. St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kimberly M. Gardner announced Thursday that after weeks of blistering pressure from Missouri lawmakers, she would indeed resign effective June 1st. In a letter addressed to Mike Parson, Gardner makes no mention of the turmoil in her office, nor the extensive staff departures in recent weeks. Instead, she says she is stepping down to prevent the state legislature from passing the bill that would strip her of most of her power and permanently remove the right of every St. Louis voter to elect their circuit attorney. I say you still pass the bill. The most powerful weapon I have to fight back against these outsiders, stealing your voices and your rights to step back, she writes. I took this job to serve the people in the city of St. Louis, and that's still my North Star. News of her departure sent shockwaves through the halls of two courthouses in downtown St. Louis where victims, defense attorneys, judges, and even Gardner's own staffers had complained for months about critical office departures and widespread dysfunction. It also reverberated through the Capitol in Jefferson City, where lawmakers had been debating a bill to strip her of power. At the same time, the news left questions about who would handle upcoming hearings, communicate with victims, and pick up the pieces of an office that now has roughly a third of the attorneys as when Gardner took office. Gardner declined to speak at a Post-Dispatch reporter about her decision as she left an all-staff meeting at the Carnahan Courthouse on Thursday afternoon. Governor Parson will appoint Gardner's replacement. His spokeswoman said Thursday morning that he would begin the process to fill the office vacancy. Again, I urge you, continue to strip that office of power. So when the next Soros-backed person comes up against elected, that person doesn't just pick up where Gardner left off. So, that is what we have for that. Fox News not missing an opportunity to say Soros-backed because, that's what drives clicks to Fox News. Fox News reporting Soros-backed prosecutor mired in scandal resigns from office. From Aaron Kliegman. An embattled Soros-bankrolled prosecutor in St. Louis resigned Thursday amid a legal effort by Missouri's AG to fire her for allegedly neglecting her duties. St. Louis attorney Kimberly Gardner, the city's top prosecutor, is stepping down following the repeated bipartisan calls for her resignation from officials across Missouri. Gardner's office tweeted Gardner's resignation letter, which was addressed to the people of St. Louis. For years, Gardner's office has faced criticism for mishandling cases and office dysfunction. The final straw for A.G. Bailey came in February when a teenage volleyball player visiting St. Louis with her team was struck by a car and lost both of her legs. A man was charged in the crash with assault, armed criminal action, and operating a motor vehicle without a valid license. He was out on bond and awaiting trial for a separate armed robbery case, despite violating the terms of his bond several dozen times. Gardner argued that her office had tried to put the suspect back in jail, but that a judge had denied their request. However, there are no court records of her office, which is responsible for monitoring compliance with bond conditions and revoking them when those terms are violated, asking for his bond to be revoked according to local reports. Well, the paper trail doesn't lie. Again, I would still try to strip that office of power if it was me, because of course she's trying to do this to try to take the scent off of the office. So again, when the people come back and elect somebody new for that office, and it winds up being a progressive again, then that person doesn't just pick up and keep doing the same stuff that Gardner was doing. Some reaction to this from Fox 2 Now out of St. Louis. Missouri officials, lawmakers react to Kim Gardner's resignation. From Emily Manley, Joey Schneider, and Kevin S. Held. After months of calls, requests, and demands for her to resign, St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner is stepping down. Her resignation is effective June 1st. Gardner, the city's first African-American chief prosecutor, announced her resignation Thursday. It is with heavy heart but steadfast resolve I'm resigning my position as your circuit attorney, effective June 1st, she says in a 2-page letter. Officials and lawmakers have learned of this decision and are weighing in. Some examples: Mike Parson, who will be appointing her replacement. Our office has officially been notified of the resignation, effective June 1st. We fully understand the gravity of the situation and approach our duty to appoint a replacement with utmost seriousness. We will immediately start the replacement process according to the Missouri Constitution and Section 105.050 RS Missouri. A.G. Bailey says there's absolutely no reason for the circuit attorney to remain in office until June 1st. We remain undeterred with our legal quest to forcibly remove her from office. Every day she remains puts the city of St. Louis in more danger. How many more victims will there be between now and June 1st? How many defendants will have their constitutional rights violated? How many cases will continue to go unprosecuted? Bailey had filed a quo warranto lawsuit in effort to remove Gardner from office in February. Tashara Jones, St. Louis mayor, says in February, I said Circuit Attorney Gardner should take accountability for office and do some soul searching to determine whether or not she wants to continue in her role. She's clearly taken that advice to heart by offering her resignation. Mike Kehoe, Lieutenant Governor, says Gardner's decision to resign as St. Louis attorney is a major step forward in restoring the rule of law in St. Louis. This is the only decision she has made during her tenure with which I agree. And the last one, State Senator John Rizzo, because I wanted to grab another Democrat perspective off of this, says Rizzo and Gardner had a phone call yesterday hinting that her resignation could soon be coming. At that point, she decided it would be best for her, for the city, and also for her personally, after all the stuff she has been through, to resign. So, it's a partisan thing. The people on the left think that it's a terrible miscarriage of justice, and the people on the right think that she's a hero for stepping down. Yes, St. Louis is going to stay blue, Mogwai. That is correct. Speaking of policing, I've got this article from Time I wanted to look at just briefly. Private security guards are replacing police across America. From Alana Samuels. Andrea Boyer enters the gas station like a soldier, back straight, boots shine, AR-15 pointed towards the floor. He's late to meet me, he says, because his employee caught a shoplifter and needed to sort through red tape. He seems unaware of the flutter of anxiety spreading through the store as customers see his weapon, handcuffs, and bulletproof vest. But if anyone asked, which they don't, he'd assure them that he's there for their own good, even though it's hard to be relaxed in the presence of a loaded gun. We're not here to beat people up, says Boyer, who heads SITE, a private protection agency that is patrolling gas stations and hotels in Philadelphia at the behest of store owners. We're here to let the public know they can feel safe. Boyer's armed guard service has boomed over the last year as Philadelphia police staffing issues led to longer response times. Neil Patel, the owner of the Carco gas station, says he hired Boyer in December after thieves stole an ATM from his gas station and the police didn't respond for 6 hours. Not just stole from an ATM, stole an ATM, by the way. That's not a typo. I remember that story. The cops didn't come and the owner was helpless. So they just picked the thing up. And an ATM, if it's not actually built into the wall, if it is standalone, is not a light piece of equipment because it's armored. Mattel is not the only business owner shelling out money for private security, as police departments across the U.S. lose staff. Already struggling to recruit new applicants in 2019, police departments saw a spike in retirements and a drop-off in the new recruits after the 2020 death, not murder, of George Floyd, St. George, hallowed be his name, and subsequent backlash against police, said Chuck Wexler, the executive director of the Police Executive Research Forum. In Philadelphia alone, police staffing levels dropped nearly 10% from the end of 19 to the end of 2022. A recent government audit found nationally the number of sworn officers dropped 7% between 19 and 21, according to the FBI data. I know somebody who is an armed security guard. In a situation like this, he actually works at a department store in a state that doesn't exist. And a part of what we're doing with this, when we do things like this, and by the way, there's private security guarding police stations. Just to let you know how stupid this has become. Because that particular person that I'm talking about has gone and actually worked private security in a police station where most of the staff is armed. So try to wrap your head around that for a moment. But the reality is, a lot of the good cops are retiring. The ones who are actually out there to serve and protect, because they're being lumped in with the jerk-offs who are out there. They're the big burly, hey, I was a bully in high school, but I peaked when I was 21, so now I'm going to be a cop so I can be the one who's going to lay down the law on you, and you know, just the same kind of stuff that they did in high school. The exact same kind of stuff that they did in high school. The good ones who would dive in front of a bullet for you don't want that hassle anymore. And the other side of this, and this is... I know my libertarian friends like to bring up the idea of private security and that all policing should be done by private security. I will say, as far as enforcement of law goes, not necessarily diving in front of a bullet for people, but as far as enforcement of laws go, the state should be, if the state's going to make the law, they should be responsible for enforcing it, paying the money to actually have an enforcement agency, a police. No matter how bullshit the law is, if they're going to make it, they have to pay to enforce it, levy the fines, pay the attorneys to represent them in court, and incarcerate the people, if that comes down to that. That is their responsibility. They made the stupid law. But when you're going with private security, again, this is not necessarily for law enforcement, although shoplifting was brought up in all of this. That's red tape, and I'm sorry, private security guards should not be involved in that. But that should be the person who dives in front of you, and partially because that person is getting paid to dive in front of a bullet in front of you. Or your customers, as the matter goes. The last thing I want to put onto this comes from the appointment versus election aspect of things. One of the reasons that I don't fit into the Libertarian Party and why I say that I'm politically homeless is the fact that as far as policing goes, as long as it's an elected position, like a sheriff, I have less of a problem with police that are beholden to the people. These either state patrol that are appointed by the governor, or these metro police people who are appointed by, especially the chiefs that are appointed by a mayor, who may or may not be corrupt himself. That kind of stuff needs to go. But in the absence of this, again, if I owned a business where there were things of value that were constantly going in and out of my business, yes, that does include gasoline, by the way, I would rather have somebody that is paid to dive in front of a bullet in front of me, or dive in front of a bullet in front of my customers, who I know is working for me because I'm paying that person, rather than the city paying a person and then, oh, hey, you spoke out against our government, hey, we don't have to go back and protect you. From the New York Post. Mayor Adams rips AOC for rush to conclude that Jordan Neely was murdered. From Lee Brown. Mayor Adams has ripped the Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez, D-Twitch, for rushing to conclude that Jordan Neely was murdered when he was put in a chokehold by a Marine. Hisner criticized the progressive lawmaker, along with City Comptroller Brad Lander, who claimed that people are cheering for how the troubled 30-year-old homeless man was choked to death by a vigilante without consequence. I don't think it's very responsible at a time where we're still investigating the situation, Adams said on CNN Primetime late Wednesday, when asked about both inflammatory tweets. Let's let the DA conduct the investigation with the law enforcement officials. To really interfere with that is not the right thing to do. Now, this happened... When did this happen? Sunday? I'm not going to play the video, obviously, because of YouTube. I believe this happened on Sunday was when this happened. And I have not covered this. Whereas in other situations like this, I will typically jump up and cover this right away. And the reason that I did not rather, was for the same reason that Adams is bringing this up right now. What AOC does when she does this kind of thing, and it's the same thing that Biden did, and it's still a miracle that that kid got a fair trial in Kenosha, the Rittenhouse trial, is that Biden, the chief law enforcement agent of this country, said that Kyle Rittenhouse was absolutely guilty before his trial even took place. He determined the guilt, and he tried to push his propagandists into telling us that Kyle Rittenhouse was guilty. The government has no business weighing in on the guilt or innocence of somebody until they have been tried by a jury of their peers. I realize that I am not the government myself. But I also don't want to come in on something like this and weigh the pros and cons of this, unless it's been tried by a jury of one's peers. I don't always follow with that, especially when it's something as high profile as the Rittenhouse case. This was actually a relatively low profile case, but it's being used because it was a white Marine that took down a black homeless man. We may see evidence in the trial, and some of this may come out, that yes, this guy absolutely murdered this homeless man. That may come out in trial, that may come out in discovery. But for right now, we don't know. And this gentleman has the right to appear in front of a jury of his peers and argue his case, or have his lawyer do so, before he's tried by social media, which unfortunately he already has been. In another instance of, hey, let's go ahead and use the DOJ against our political enemies, from The Hill, Kari Lake's lawyer must pay $2,000 in sanctions for 2022 election statements. From Julia Mueller. She, by the way, thinks that she's going to run for Senate. I'm going to wait until she actually announces, but I mentioned some of this yesterday. I do think that's a bad idea. Former Arizona Republican gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake's legal team must pay $2,000 in sanctions after she made unsubstantiated claims about voter fraud in Maricopa County, because of course we have to come back and editorialize absolutely everything that goes on to the mainstream media. According to a new filing, a Thursday order filed from Supreme Court of Arizona and shared online by Democracy Docket, so you know that this is completely objective, granted a motion from Katie Hobbs and Secretary of State Adrian Fontes for sanctions and directed counsel for Lake to pay $2,000 to the state's court's clerk. Hush money. Bribery. No, that's the other way. Bribery is when they want something out of the government, not the other way around. It's a shakedown is what it is. filing argues that Lake has repeatedly asserted that it is an undisputed fact that 35,563 ballots were added or injected at a third-party vendor. Not only is that allegation strongly disputed by other parties, this court concluded and expressly stated that the assertion was unsupported by the record, and nothing in Lake's motion for leave to file a motion for reconsideration provides reason to revisit the issue, the order reads. Although Lake may have permissibly argued that interference could be made that some ballots were added, there's no evidence that 35,563 ballots were, and more to the point here, it was certainly disputed by the respondents. The representation that this was an undisputed fact is therefore unequivocally false. So again, you're doing a shakedown because you don't like what it is that they did. Alright, a little bit of news from my state here. We're actually going to be doing a bunch of stuff from my state over here, on things I like and things that I hate, but some stuff out of my state today. We got one here from Wisconsin Public Radio, Wisconsin the World for NPR, telling us Governor Evers calls the GOP cuts to mental health services and state budget foolishness. And remember, the only way that Wisconsin Public Radio and National Public Radio at large, which are funded by the government but only to 10%, so they need our money, comrade, is if you hit that donate button so they can tell you. They can sit down and focus on one aspect of a Republican budget cut and say that it's the entire cut, as is done in this one here. So, this comes from Hope Kerwin. Governor Evers calls GOP cuts to mental health services and state budget foolishness. Let's read on. Let's see what Wisconsin Public Radio has to say, because Wisconsin Public Radio is a division of NPR, which is never printing reality. National Progressive Radio, let's see what it is that they have to say. Democrat Governor Tony Evers said Republicans' decisions to completely cut his proposals for mental health funding from the next state budget is foolishness. The governor toured the Cooley Recovery Center in La Crosse on Tuesday to promote his proposals to make the 2023 the year of mental health in Wisconsin. Evers proposed $500 million for mental health programs in the next state budget. But many of those programs, including $235 million for mental health services in schools, were cut by Republican-led Budget Committee during a vote on Tuesday. GOP lawmakers cut a total of 545 proposals, including a new family paid leave program, the legalization of marijuana, which was stupid, by the way, and the enrollment freeze in the state's voucher school program. That they should have cut. Evers said on Tuesday that he had recently saw the impact of an increased funding for school mental health during a visit to Delavan Darien School District. He said he met with 50 students who are trained as peer helpers on the issue of drug and alcohol abuse. That will stop happening next year because the legislators decided to take Kids Get Ahead initiative out of the budget, Evers said. The need is there, and it's overwhelming need. It's an overwhelming need, even in a smaller school district like Delavan Darien, where they're actually not only reaching out to kids, they're reaching out to the community. They're having mental health and behavioral health discussions in the community. That stops. That's foolishness. And again, the problem is that we can't afford it. Now, would I like to see more mental health focus? Yes. Do I want to see it funded by the government? No. Because when we look at something, and again, when this comes funded from a government, from either side, they make the decision on who is mentally unwell. And then, once you're in that mental health situation, no more guns, no more vote, especially if you're in the wrong political party. Although if you're in the right political party, oh, your mental health is secured enough and you can go back out and vote. I don't want the government anywhere near mental health and mental health diagnoses. I would much rather see that in a private party. I wonder how Biden wants to reach these kids. And they should have legalized the pot. They really should have. There's no reason to keep that out there and illegal anymore. I mean, I applied for a job recently where I actually interviewed previously to the application because I knew the person who was offering the job. And the guy said, and he wasn't talking to me like he normally talks to me. He was talking to me in his best professional voice because he had two of his other bosses there with him. And said, okay, well, are you on any drugs? And we will test for drugs, but we can't take any punitive action against THC or marijuana-induced stuff, which, again, CDL, I'm not on it anyway. Because I've got a Class A driver's license. But, I mean, nobody gives a damn about that anymore. Yeah, exactly. Oh, wait, your mental health is in question? Here, I'll fill out this ballot for you. And honk honk, that was one of the things that happened in this state. Honk honk. This almost got onto things that I hate, but that segment's already way too crowded, so we're going to put this up here instead. Shocked Serbians mourn victims of Belgrade school shooting. From Jovana Gek and Dusan Stojanovic. Scores of Serbian students, many wearing black and carrying flowers, paid silent homage on Thursday to peers killed a day earlier when a 13-year-old boy used his father's guns in a school shooting rampage that sent shockwaves through the nation and triggered moves to boost gun control. The students filled the streets around the school in central Belgrade as they streamed in from all over the city. Earlier, thousands had lined up to lay flowers, light candles, and leave toys to commemorate the 8 children and school guard who were killed on Wednesday morning. Boy, this really comes out and cuts against the narrative that this only happens here, by the way. People cried and hugged outside the school as they stood in front of heaps of flowers, small teddy bears, and soccer balls. A gray and pink toy elephant was placed on the school fence, along with messages of grief, and a girl's ballet shoes hung from the fence. The Balkan nation is struggling to come to terms with what has happened, though awash with weapons left over from wars of the 90s. Mass shootings still have been extremely rare because, well, in most instances, if you try to shoot up a school, they will shoot back. And this is the first school shooting in Serbia's modern history. The tragedy also sparked a debate about the general state of the nation following decades of crises and conflicts, whose aftermath have created a state of permanent insecurity and instability, along with deep political divisions. By the way, I didn't put this on the stack today. Number one, I wanted to read a little bit more about it. But number two, it's the government punishing the government. Enrique Tarrio was found guilty of the January 6th seditious conspiracy. So they'll go and put him in a prison as Enrique Tarrio, in a prison cell as Enrique Tarrio, and then a week after they put him in prison, which the sentencing is going to take another 2 or 3 months, but a week after they put him in prison, he'll be back out on the streets with new fingerprints, a new ID, and a new name. Pretty sweet deal, that's what you get for working for the government. Dragan Popadic, a psychology professor at Belgrade, told the Associated Press that it's still unclear what caused the teenager to react in such a way, but that the tragedy has exposed the level of violence present in society that caused a deep shock. Because it happened one time in 50 years. All of a sudden, we're living in a different world. He said, we used to live in a world where it was impossible for a 13-year-old to be a mass killer, and now all of a sudden it was possible, and we have to accept that it happened. Again, because it happened one time in 50 years. Hell, even the schools in the 90s and early 2000s didn't start barricading up until after we started getting mass shooting and gang violence shooting after gang violence shooting in places like Chicago and Los Angeles. From the BBC, Belgrade shooting, teen made kill list for Serbia school attack. With no author given. Oh no, we have an author on this one, from James Gregory in London and Slobodan Marasic in Belgrade. A teenager who killed 8 fellow students and security guard in a school in Serbia planned the attack for weeks and had a kill list according to police. Which tells me it was probably a retaliation from being bullied to within inches of his life. Which doesn't make it right, by the way. But if he had a list, which means he probably remembers who shoved his head in a toilet. The 13-year-old was arrested following Wednesday's attack, and the boy's father and mother have also been arrested, and those two will be disappeared, because it's a Baltic state. Of those killed, 7 of the victims were girls at the school, but the motive for the attack is still unclear. So, kinda again, punches against the notion of it only happens in the US. Let's move on to abortion stuff here. Nancy Mace. Nancy Mace on DeSantis signing heartbeat bill into law to protect unborn babies, not compassionate. The pro-life conservative, or pro-choice rather conservative, pro-abortion conservative more like, from Daily Wire News. Nancy Mace slammed Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for signing a heartbeat bill into law that protects the lives of unborn babies the moment a heartbeat is detected. We are proud to support life and family in the state of Florida, DeSantis said, signing the bill into law earlier this month. I applaud the legislature for passing the Heartbeat Protection Act that expands pro-life protections and provides additional resources for young mothers and families. Mace took issue with the signing, which she decried happened in the dead of night, even though it was widely publicized by the governor's office. Signing a 6-week ban that puts women who are victims of rape and girls who are victims of incest, which the bill has exceptions for. Incest in a hard spot isn't the way to change hearts and minds. It's not compassionate, she claimed. The requirements he has for rape victims are too much, not something that I support. It's a non-starter. I want to talk just a second about this, and Mace goes on, I'm a victim of rape. I was raped at 16. I'm very wary the devil's in the details. I want to talk just one moment about something here when it comes to the requirements for the reporting on the rape or abortion. That being the carve-out and the exception for all of this. A lot of people are decrying the fact that DeSantis put the provision in there that you must report the rape within a timely fashion in order to be eligible for an abortion for the rape. And I think that's a good thing, honestly. I do. It's not because I want these girls to have to go back through it or, evil, discompassionate Republican and evil woman hater and everything else. I want the jackass that did it to get caught. And every single day that he gets to run free without a report, without anybody coming forward or anything else, I want the asshole to get caught. And I want Big Bubba in the Florida prison to make his asshole that started out looking like this to turn out to be this diameter. I never understood why women don't get that. Yes, I understand it's a traumatic experience. It took me a long time to talk about the abuse and the fact that my ex-girlfriend literally tried to kill me by convincing me to do it myself. But if I'd have been in a position to talk about it right away, which I wasn't, she might actually be in prison right now. So, the pro-choice conservative is coming out here and telling us how bad conservatism is for doing what conservatism has tried to do for as long as I've been alive. Another one that almost made it on Things That I Hate. But this is also, you kind of get what you deserve here. From WGN9 out of Chicago. We simply have no more shelters. Lightfoot implores Abbott to stop sending migrants. You know, Lightfoot. We're a sanctuary city. No human being is illegal. Give us your huddled masses. We'll find a place for them. If those red state governors are too bad to you, come to Chicago. And now that they're coming to Chicago, you know what? No, don't come to Chicago anymore. Which, I mean, you shouldn't do anyway, because going to Chicago is pretty much a death sentence at this point. This is from Ronak Tumulty and Eli Ong. More migrants are set to arrive in the city from Texas on Monday, and Mayor Lori Lightfoot is asking the Governor Abbott to stop. We simply have no more shelter spaces or resources to accommodate an increase of individuals at this level, a letter penned by Lightfoot reads in part. So, my question here is, why do you think that Texas has all the space and all the resources for this? Again, you and members of your party have voted consistently to loosen border restrictions and border regulations, so more people can come in and settle in places like Texas and Arizona. Why is it that you think that they have the resources that your massive progressive system doesn't have? Your progressive system that says you'll take care of everybody who comes in, just come in and vote the right way. Chicago has welcomed more than 8,000 asylum seekers since last August, with Lightfoot saying many of those who have been bused or flown here are in dire need of basic resources. Her letter states further, I know by your actions that you either do not see or do not care about the trauma that these migrants have already faced and continue to suffer under the humanitarian crisis you have created. But I beseech you anyway, treat these individuals with respect and dignity that they deserve. So, we can't put them up. We can't put them in places. But we expect you to, because of the humanitarian crisis that you caused. And I don't understand how Abbott caused a humanitarian crisis. Will anything change on the Democratic side on border protection? Not until they get socialism, because remember kids, a planned economy has closed borders because people migrating are a variable. And also, the closed borders are there to keep people in, as well as keep other people out. Some Hollywood news that actually came up over the weekend, and again, haven't been able to get to. Hollywood braces for writer's strike that could shut down production on most TV shows. From Chris Isidore. This is a little bit outdated because they are already on strike at this point. Actually, I'm going to skip this one because they're already on strike. But we'll talk about what was in the strike here from the Daily Wire. Screenwriter strike could grind Hollywood to a halt this week. Here's which shows could be hit. From Ben Ziesloft. Mogwai says, you left a war-torn nation all across of rainforests and cartel-infested parts of South America, Central America, and Mexico. When you get to the border, we send you to Chicago. They'd be safer in the war zone. That might be a part of the incentive structure as well, by the way. Members of the Writers Guild of America are currently slated to begin a strike on Monday as the contract between the union and major production companies expires. Nearly 98% of union members voted earlier this year to authorize a strike in the event of the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers, a trade association that represents more than 350 studios in entertainment industry negotiations, did not approve a new contract with increased minimum compensation, larger contributions to pension and health plans, and the regulation of material produced with artificial intelligence or similar technology. The strike which would be the first for the Writers Guild of America in more than 15 years, occurs as the shift towards streaming contributes to diminished profits in television and cinema. The union said that firms have used the transition to streaming to cut writer pay and separate writing from production, worsening working conditions for series writers at all levels. The share of writers working at the minimum standards established by the most recent Writers Guild of America contract has increased substantially in recent years, producing 23% median compensation decline when adjusted for inflation, even as series budgets increase. Daniel Kunka, a screenwriter who serves as strike captain for the Writers Guild of America, said on social media that the union and the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers will negotiate up until the deadline on Monday. Anyway, we're looking at who is being affected because they, as we know, are already on strike. Members of the Guild went on strike for 3 months between 2007 and 2008, causing production delays and shortened seasons for shows such as Colbert Report, 30 Rock, Family Guy, and Saturday Night Live. Production for shows such as Kimmel, The Tonight Show, Bill Maher, Seth Meyers, Saturday Night Live, and Last Week Tonight with John Oliver would also immediately cease if the strike enters into effect on Tuesday, according to a memo from the Writers Guild of America obtained by the LA Times. Hey, see? Writers in Hollywood can make America better. Look at that! They already have. Interesting note, I believe it was it... Somebody correct me on this one. I believe it was second season, Next Generation, was actually cut short due to the writer's strike in 88. Because Next Generation started in 87. I remember Orange River talking about that. By the way, if you guys haven't checked out Orange River, that's not going to be on Things I Like and Things That I Hate, but I might do it next week. He is as progressive as they come. I'd like to have him on at some point just to discuss ideas off with him, but I know that given my anti-government stance that he probably would not. But that guy is a wealth of knowledge, and he did a review of individually all the episodes of Season 1 and Season 2 of Next Generation. And he did point out the fact that the Season 2 was shortened due to the writer's strike. So for the most part, it seems to be the progressive live shows, but I'm sure that you're going to see a few other problems coming up, not in this season of your favorite streamed or binge shows, but probably in next season. Another one that almost made it into the Things That I Like, but again, we had way too much about that. From WBEZ out of Chicago, Illinois assault weapons ban enforcement blocked by federal judge in southern Illinois. From John Seidel. Soundcaster is here. It says, I've corrupted Mog. He's a full-on Edhead now. I gotta reach out to you probably over the weekend, Caster. Because I already have an appointment after Contemporary tonight with somebody else. But we gotta talk, Caster, you and I. We do. It's good stuff. I promise. A federal judge in southern Illinois temporarily blocked enforcement of Illinois' months-old assault weapons ban on Friday, saying the law not only restricts the rights to defend oneself, but in some cases completely obliterated that right. In a 29-page ruling granting a preliminary injunction in a set of consolidated lawsuits, District Judge Stephen McGlynn questioned whether the senseless crimes of a relative few can be so despicable to justify the infringement of the constitutional rights of law-abiding individuals, in hopes that such crimes will then abate or at least not be as horrific. The simple answer at this stage in litigation, the judge wrote, is likely no. Illinois assault weapons ban was enacted in January in response to the mass shooting at Highland Park's 4th of July parade that left 7 people dead. Once again, staying in Chicagoland, but asking all of downstate, which is basically high tax Missouri, to follow along with something that happened in Chicago. By a leftist, by the way. McGlynn said his ruling is not a final resolution, that nothing in this order prevents the state from confronting firearm-related violence through a wide array of other laws. Again, one of the big things that they should be doing with this is enforcing laws in Chicago. Let Chicago make their own assault weapons ban, void card, etc. like that. But let the rest of high-tax Missouri do their own thing, you know? CBS Chicago reporting, Illinois assault weapon ban case will likely head to the Supreme Court, experts say. That was probably the reason behind introducing it as a case in the first place. From Sarah Mashi. Illinois gun sellers were bracing Saturday for a surge in sales. This comes after a downstate judge temporarily halted the state's ban on so-called assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. But there are questions about where this case goes next and how long customers might be able to access the items on the banned list. One of the plaintiffs trying to end the ban says this is their first win, but he was cautiously optimistic, expecting the case to now head to the 7th Circuit. Late Friday, District Judge Stephen McGlynn in East St. Louis handed out a 29-page injunction that essentially puts a temporary block on the state law banning the sale of assault-style weapons and high-capacity magazines. Many now expect the state attorney general will appeal that ruling with the 7th Circuit. We do have an idea what the circuit court might say because they looked at another injunction from a Naperville gun dealer earlier this month. The big problem for Pritzker, and I can't think of the guy's name, but the new incoming mayor of Chicago, is that with the New York State Rifle Association's decision in the Supreme Court, this is likely going bye-bye too. Dancing bear! I am dancing bear. I will be better than Harris. So, hooray! Speaking of assault weapons, and I think we'll do this here, and then we will still have stuff left over for tomorrow, but most of it will be gone, and then we will move into things that I like and things that I hate. From Insider. The IRS is hiring special agents prepared to use deadly force if needed, and is paying up to $95,000 per year per agent, by the way. From Sam Tabariti. The IRS is hiring special agents who shouldn't be afraid of using deadly force. Criminal Investigation, the law enforcement branch of the IRS, is looking for agents across the U.S. who can combine accounting skills with law enforcement skills to investigate financial crimes, according to a job posting from its website. Special agents are duly sworn law enforcement officers who are trained to follow the money. These agents investigate financial crimes, money laundering, tax-related identity theft, and terrorist financing efforts. They're the only IRS workers who are permitted to carry and use firearms. Don't worry, they're only going after the billionaires, though. It's not going to be about you, it's just going to be about the billionaires. Required to work a minimum of 50 hours a week, always on call, even during vacations and weekends. These agents will need to be fit so they can effectively respond to life-threatening situations per the listing. Life-threatening accounting situations. They will conduct arrests, search warrants, and other dangerous assignments, but most importantly, they must be legally allowed to carry a gun. I want you to sit back and think about this. Before we talk about what it is the progressives want you to think that this is, I want you to sit back and think about this. Mr. Billionaire, who this raise of IRS agents is supposed to be going after, he gets audited. he finds out he owes $1.5 million more than what he initially thought that he owed. Mr. Billionaire has private security and a few senators in his pocket, and maybe even a section of the local police in his pocket. Do you think that this guy is going to be shooting back? Or, and this is the other question, do you think that these agents are going to be coming out and shooting against trained, armed, highly paid security for a billionaire? Or is the more likely scenario Jim Bob Redneck lives in a trailer covered with flags that say "Let's go Brandon," has an arsenal of firearms. He was hoping to use his tax return to buy a bunch more firearms. He hates the IRS in and of itself and doesn't want none of them revenuers up on his lawn. But he claimed that the mileage that he used to go back and forth to the factory was a tax write-off, and is now being audited, and he found out that he owes $3,000 more on his taxes than he initially thought that he did. Who do you think that these IRS agents are going after in that scenario? Now, the progressives will have you believe it's the billionaire. But secretly, deep down, the progressives are hoping that these IRS agents go and shoot Jim Bob Redneck. Putting this in Clown World in the Discord. And tomorrow, when we finish off with the news that comes up tomorrow, which Friday is typically a light news day, we'll be talking about North Carolina. We'll be talking about Donald Trump's Bud Light stock, which I've been wanting to talk about all week. This one here I want to get to at some point here. And this moron suing the Trump resort after a searing pool deck burned his foot. But those will be for tomorrow. For now, we're going to do a bunch of things that I like and a bunch of things that I hate. So everything, by the way, past the Restream tab here is things I like and things that I hate. I collected a bunch of them, and it's all stuff that I want to get through here. So let's get started. Thing that I like number one today is a viral TikTok, which I don't know why I'm using the word TikTok on this channel, but we're saying viral TikTok. Viral TikTok video shows Americans singing the national anthem at a restaurant in California, and liberals are terrified. This is from Carlos Garcia. A social media video from a restaurant in California showed Americans singing the national anthem at a restaurant in California, and many people reacted with horror and anger. A TikToker posted a video from the Rainbow Oaks restaurant as the clients stood up, put their hands over their hearts, and sang along with the national anthem in Fallbrook, a small city in North San Diego. By far the most dangerous situation I've been in, she wrote about the incident and added hashtags #WhitePeopleThings. The video went viral, garnered 3 million views on TikTok, mostly botted, and over 17,000 comments. KUSI-TV sent a reporter to the restaurant to cover the daily ritual that has been happening for 6 years. She called it the most patriotic restaurant that she has ever been to. Based. Let's watch. They don't have the TikTok, but they do have... Do they have the TikTok on here? Can I get that? They don't show me the TikTok, but here is the local reporting.
Hi, well, we are at a very busy restaurant, Rainbow Oaks, in Fallbrook, and this is a tradition that they've had for 6 years. We are now going to stand for the national anthem. what? This is the most patriotic restaurant that I have ever been to, and having a restaurant like this in the state of California is so special. They play the national anthem every single day at noon.
And I can imagine why some of our friends to the left are terrified by that. What else do I like today? Paul Stanley got into the news this past week. Paul Stanley of KISS. Como News reports KISS lead singer condemns transgender procedures for minors, a sad and dangerous fad. From Alex Schemmel, lead singer and co-founder of legendary rock band KISS, Paul Stanley, released a short letter on social media this weekend featuring choice words for those who support transgender procedures for minors. Stanley called out those normalizing and even encouraging young children to participate in a lifestyle which Stanley insisted confuses young children into questioning their sexual identification as through some sort of game. Now, there are things about this that I like and things about this that I do hate. Paul Stanley says there's a big difference between teaching and acceptance and normalizing even encouraging participation in a lifestyle that confuses young children into questioning their sexual identification as through some sort of game, and then parents in some cases allow it. There are individuals who as adults may decide reassignment is their needed choice, but turning this into a game or parents normalizing it as some kind of natural alternative, or believing that because a little boy likes to play dress up in his sister's clothes or a girl in her brother's, we should lead them steps further down a path that's far from innocence of what they are doing. With many children who have no real reason or real sense of sexuality or sexual experiences caught up in the fun of using pronouns and saying what they identify as, some adults mistakenly confuse teaching acceptance with normalizing and encouraging a situation that has been a struggle for those truly affected and have turned into a sad and dangerous fad. Which, unfortunately, that is a lot of what this is a sad and dangerous fad. Oh, well, if you want to be in the cool kids club, you have to have your pronouns. And they have to be legitimate pronouns. They can't be your/mom. I don't know what bigot says that they can't be your/mom. But here we are. And a lot of people came down on Paul Stanley for the fact that he dressed up in feminized, like platform boots, high boots, tights, makeup, things like that. But as was pointed out in this, Paul Stanley he drew the distinction between dressing up. Like, he's not saying not to experiment, cross-dress, or try to figure out who you are through a series of things. He's just saying, lay off the surgeries until you're a grown-up. That's the segment of this that I hated. They try to conflate Paul Stanley's cross-dressing with transsexuality, and that's not what it was. And in fact, Stanley was probably one of the least cross-dressed ones on the stage. Under most circumstances. But even Dee Snider came back out. Dee Snider. Dried up, progressive, liberalist Dee Snider came out and said, "Well said!" Dee Snider backs KISS star's controversial statement against normalizing child sex changes. From Brendan Dre. Twisted Sister frontman Dee Snider aired his support for KISS singer and guitarist Paul Stanley's controversial Sunday statement, which condemned normalizing gender reassignment surgery on children as a sad and dangerous trend. Snider, 68, who formed the iconic glam rock group Twisted Sister in the 70s, retweeted Stanley's statements in applause becoming the next American rock star to speak out against the mainstream transgender narrative. "You know what? There was a time when I felt pretty too. Glad my parents didn't jump to any rash conclusions. Well said." And again, Dee Snider, who, especially with all the hair product that he had at the time in the 70s and 80s, probably would have been another one who would have been considered to be gender confused at the time. But, you know, he was swamped with women too, so there was that aspect of things. And again, there is a difference between dressing and chopping parts off and adding other parts. There's a big difference between there. And yes, there's some people out there who I truly believe are going to only be satisfied with their lives if they undergo the knife. I think that there are bigger problems there with that person, but they probably can only be satisfied if they undergo the knife or do certain things. But let's at least let them be able to legally enter into a contract before they do something that changes their life forever. This one I just thought was funny from CNN. Student eats artwork of banana. Duct taped to a museum wall because he was hungry. From Yoon Jung So in Seoul and Kathleen Magramo in the US for CNN. For some, the chance to see a banana duct taped to a wall is to be within touching distance of a sensational moment in recent art history. For others, it's an enticing snack. On Thursday, an art student from Seoul National University found it to be the latter when he removed the fruit, an iconic work from Italian artist Maurizio Cattelan, from off the wall in the Liam Museum of Art in Seoul, where it was displayed, and then they proceeded to eat it. The student told the museum he ate it because he was hungry. The museum spokesperson told CNN in a phone call. Entitled Comedian, the work became one of the art world's biggest viral moments when it sold for $120,000 at Art Basel Miami Beach in December 2019. Two other editions of the piece also sold at the fair. After chopping down on the fruit, the student taped the peel back in the wall. The peel was later replaced by the museum with a fresh banana. So, a couple things with this. Number one, this is absolutely hilarious. The fact that somebody can just walk up into a six-figure work of art, and just eat it off the wall without getting tackled. But it also points out, and this, I'm glad I read this article because I was actually really confused. This piece of art was commissioned in 2019. I don't know if you've ever left a banana on a counter for 4 years, but they typically don't last 3 weeks before they're basically banana wine in balloons on your counter. So I was very confused as to how we got to a situation where that banana stayed up there and was still there 4 years later. But I guess when it starts to get moldy, they take the duct tape up and swap it out for a new banana. Which kind of takes some of the edge off of this story, but it's still hilarious. From the Blaze, high-tax blue states losing residents, tax revenue, red states reap benefits, leading job and population growth. From Candace Hathaway. Americans are fleeing blue states with an increasing rate to move to low-tax Republican-led states, which are gaining tax revenue and leading in job and population growth, according to the new IRS reporting for 2021. Recently released IRS data revealed that high-earning taxpayers are leaving Democrat-run states, including Illinois, New York, and California, for states with lower tax rates, including Florida and Texas, the Wall Street Journal reported. Yeah, that's kind of like not the headline. That's the name of the paper. According to the data, 105,000 taxpayers fled from Illinois in 2021, which bled the state of $10.9 billion in adjusted gross income, up from $8.5 billion in 2020 and $6 billion in 2019. That's a propaganda title, regardless of the accuracy level. If it was a Big Mac, they would that effort would still be there till the sun goes supernova. You know, I only ate a Big Mac for the first time in like 2013, 2014. I think it was before that, but it was really late. I have some sort of stomach issue with mayonnaise. I don't know what it is because I can literally eat anything that's in mayonnaise. But once you put them together, if I eat that, it's right back out within minutes. Always has been for my entire life. And trust me, I've tried it recently. So with the special sauce, which is mayonnaise based, by the way, I've always thought it was out of reach. It was recommended to me by somebody that I go and get one with ketchup instead of special sauce. And I tried it. It was not all that impressive, but I was also 28. Not like 16 as most people are when they first try a Big Mac. So, too much bread. Similarly, 262,000 former New Yorkers took $24.5 billion in AGI when they moved out of the state in 21, compared with $19.5 billion lost in 2020 and $9 billion in 2019. Yeah, they've been doing this for a while, taking money with them. Now, and this is something that I had mentioned before, and I know refugees from Minnesota too, and Illinois both, coming to this state. Leave your damn voting behind with you. Leave it there. If you're coming out of there as a relatively reliable Democrat voter who's complaining about the high taxes that Democrat politicians put into place after they've ran your resources in your state dry, leave your voting in your blue state. That's all that I ask. But yes, do take your money out of these states. Put them into states that actually want to give something back to you. And let you keep more of what's yours. And then come in and spend that money in this state. And the last one, another get what you deserve moment. Thank you, liberal Apple, for providing this here from Bloomberg. Apple's unionized store workers seek tips and higher holiday pay. From Market Gurman. Workers at Apple's unionized store in Maryland are asking for higher pay and additional time off, along with changes that could affect the company's tightly controlled retail experience, such as letting customers tip employees. I wouldn't tip an Apple employee. The employees, represented by the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, are conducting negotiations with Apple on Wednesday and Thursday. The latest proposal calls for raises of so much as 10%, as well as major changes to the outlet's vacation policy, bereavement, and overtime. They're asking, by the way, and I got this from another outlet, not from Bloomberg, because Bloomberg isn't going to go down this road. They're asking for bereavement time for their pets, paid by Apple. The store in Towson was the first Apple retail location in the U.S. to unionize, and other efforts since then haven't made much headway. Workers at a location in Oklahoma City agreed to unionize, though negotiations with Apple haven't begun. Efforts in Atlanta and St. Louis were canceled because nobody voted for them. In addition to the overall raise, representatives from the store are asking Apple for higher pay over a larger slate of holidays, including the day after Thanksgiving, which is, by the way, probably the busiest day for Apple, period. But hey, you reap what you sow. The union is also seeking to expand vacation pay and the available time off based on years of service. That's reasonable, but you can do that in private sector. And wants to extend paid bereavement from 10 days per occurrence to a maximum of 45 days a year. And for the policy to include pets and close friends. Well, have fun. That's all I have to say with that. Enjoy yourselves, Apple. You brought this on yourself. You know, I get that, Mogwai, I do. But I don't think you have to be paid for that, as the thing. At least, not out of company pay. Vacation time, yes. I went to a funeral for a woman who practically raised me, was close enough to me that I could call her my mother in addition to my actual biological mother. And the two women knew each other and they got along, I think, for the most part. I don't think they got along completely, but I think they got along for the most part. But this woman was as influential in my life as my own mother was. And I had to use vacation time for my bereavement for her. And yes, I was down for a week or two based on that. Based on what had happened there. But I used my vacation time for that. Not my bereavement time. My actual vacation time for that. But that's from Bloomberg. Now let's do a few things that I hate. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's do 10 things that I hate. How about that? From the Blaze. 10-year-olds worked unpaid shifts at Kentucky McDonald's sometimes until 2 a.m. A report. From Courtney Wheel, and this is of course being wielded as this is the world that libertarians want. And a report from the U.S. Department of Labor suggests that a McDonald's in Kentucky permitted 2 10-year-olds to work unpaid shifts that sometimes ran into the wee hours of the morning. The report released Tuesday indicates that the children worked at a McDonald's located in Louisville and owned by the franchisee Bauer Foods, LLC. The children performed all sorts of tasks that are typical in the fast food industry, including serving meals, operating the drive-thru window, and cleaning, which means that these kids are probably set for life, by the way, as far as life skills go. One of the 2 children even supposedly used the deep fryer, a piece of machinery considered dangerous equipment, and therefore forbidden to those under 16. I wonder if that's the McDonald's in Kentucky that I went to. I've eaten at a McDonald's in Kentucky. Since last August, the children reportedly worked 10 total shifts that lasted anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, and sometimes they stayed at the store until 0200. They did not receive payment for their work, the USDL reported. Now, I am not opposed to young children starting out in the workforce. Chores, a family store, and I would be actually curious to see if these were children of the manager or franchisee. I would be very curious to find that out. That actually would make a lot more sense to me at this point. They're the children of the night manager and were visiting their parents when they performed the task for the restaurant. Bauer Foods has since been fined $39,711 for the alleged child labor law violations. See, the problem that I have with this is not the kids working. Although you maybe want to keep a 10-year-old away from hot grease. I would think that would be a better idea. I mean, my 10-year-old nephew doesn't use the fryer at home. And my sister very closely monitors what happens in that home. And he doesn't use the fryer there. I think he can cook some of his own stuff, but he doesn't use the fryer at home. But if they are going to be out there doing various little tasks, safe tasks, maybe not serving food or running the register, but peeling up that's bladed, never mind. Stacking up boxes or refilling the papers. There's stuff like that, little stuff like that. They should still be getting compensated for something off of that. That's ridiculous that they don't. Though perhaps the most egregious, the two 10-year-olds are hardly the only examples of child labor law violations allegedly committed by McDonald's franchises in the region. In fact, 60 total stores located across Kentucky, Indiana, Maryland, and Ohio have likewise been fined for illegal child labor practices. Bauer Foods and two other franchisees, Archways Archways Richwood and Bell Restaurant Group, each own some of the stores. The three franchisees have been fined a total of $212,754 for labor law infractions, including assigning teens to work early in the morning or late at night, failing to pay overtime, and even scheduling teens to work during the school day. So that's one thing that I hate. Number one, the fact that this is going to give ammunition to we're against all the child labor laws and everybody shouldn't be able to work until they're 18 and things like that, which will go on to the next article. But also the fact that if you're going to put the kids to work, pay them. Silentcaster says, yeah, we don't want the kids to be flipping burgers or mopping floors. Chopping their peni off is fine, but mopping floors, that's just child abuse. Boss, you see this Elmo watch? It says I'm on overtime. I love the live chat. I really do. I should check Odyssey quick. I don't think anybody's over there. Odyssey, I think, is a dead platform. Which is kind of a shame, honestly. Because it's another one of those too, like DLive, where there's crypto by default. And payment by default. Another thing that I like here from Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, 14-year-olds could serve restaurant customers alcohol under a new bill in the Wisconsin legislature. Now, this actually would, under most circumstances, be something that I like, but again, the reason I'm putting this in things that I hate is the argument that comes out of this. Teenagers as young as 14 could serve restaurant diners alcohol in Wisconsin under a new law released on Monday. Current law requires an employee of the bar or restaurant be at least 18 to serve cocktails, wine, or beer to customers. A new bill circulated Monday by Senator Rod Staffsholt of New Richmond and Chance Green of Grandview would allow teenage employees between 14 and 17 to serve alcohol to seated customers only. Bill authors Staffsholt and Green said in a memo to colleagues that current age requirement causes workforce issues due to an establishment's underage employees only being able to do part of the job. Wisconsin's already having severe workforce shortage issues, specifically in the food and beverage industry, the lawmakers wrote in a memo. Wisconsin would be the only state in the country to allow teen workers under the age of 16 to serve alcohol. According to the National Institutes of Health, only 2 states in the country, Maine and West Virginia, allow bar and restaurant employees under the age of 18 to serve alcohol. In both states, you must be 16 or 17. In Wisconsin, the minimum age to work in a restaurant is 14. Anyone under the age of 16 must have a work permit to be employed. Under ideal circumstances. What's actually happened in the past? Well, I'm not going to talk about on this live stream. According to the Wisconsin Restaurant Association, teen workers under the age of 16 are not allowed to cook over open flames, bake, use deep fryers, rotisseries, broilers, or handle grease and oil. Tavern League of Wisconsin spokesman Scott Stenger said the organization supports the legislation. Well, that's because you get cheaper labor out of this. But I do want to talk about this for a second. Now, what the people who are against this and against child labor in general are trying to push this as is that this is just going to be a free-for-all. It's going to be 14-year-olds everywhere drinking beers as they're taking them out to customers and getting hammered on wine and everything else like that. And that is 100% not the case, especially in my state. And I know what the liquor laws are in my state. Number one, you actually don't need to have a liquor license to serve alcohol, even in a bar. You personally don't. As long as there's one person present in the building, and we learned this, by the way, with doing campground stuff, is you actually have to be physically in the building. It's not just on the premises. You have to be physically in the building while alcohol is being served. if the person serving doesn't have a liquor license. And yes, you can serve, you can get your liquor license at 18, and you can serve at 18 even without one. And even with that provision being in there, unless they, for whatever stupid reason, repeal that provision, even under that provision, you would still almost under any circumstances be in a situation where not only is there someone who's of age who is supervising, but that person would also be licensed for the serving of intoxicating and fermented beverages. Meanwhile, and again, as was brought up in some of this here, in a lot of situations, and this is just for restaurants, so this doesn't go on with people running the cash register at the local pick and save, which is another thing that happens through there. In Wisconsin, in order to scan liquor in a grocery store or a convenience store or anything else like that, you do have to be over the age of 18. Working in a pick and save at the time, I saw a lot of issues where the cashiers, most of whom were 16, were pulling anybody in that they could get their hands on who was over the 18. A lot of the time it was me too, by the way. And saying, hey, can you scan this? I can't scan this. Can you scan this? Still going in, still checking the ID, still taking the money for it, but can't actually physically run it across the scanner. Which that is not addressed in this bill. But realistically, again, as long as there's supervision to this, I don't know what the problem actually is. And yeah, if your employee underage gets caught drinking the liquor that they're carrying out, you lose your license. Which is, by the way, what happens if your server, who is under 21, consumes the liquor, you lose your license. So under most circumstances, I think this is a good thing, but again, like when I found this article, this was paired with a tweet that said, oh, look at Wisconsin, they're just ignoring child labor laws, and this is what's going to happen under libertarian utopia. I'm just seeing the kid buying smokes in the scene Clerks in my mind. I love that movie, by the way. I love that movie. That's one of my favorite movies. Alright, more things that I hate. Esquire. I don't have to go too far into this. Esquire says, is it time to quit coffee for good? And it goes on to an anecdote of one single petty officer second class in the Navy who was having seizures and lost sight in one of his eyes because he stopped drinking coffee for a little while. And actually went AWOL because of the fact that he stopped drinking coffee for a little while, and because because he had gone home to visit and he was having such a bad medical reaction to this. But all that I say about this is the fact of Esquire, why don't you mind your own damn business? I drink a can of Bang a day, and actually typically I don't drink much more caffeine after that. But I drink a single can of Bang a day and I'm fine. Anyway, moving on. Here's a case. I'll put a band-aid over it and don't solve the problem. With nearly 4,500 car thefts so far this year, New York City is handing out free Apple AirTags and telling people to put them on their cars. From Haley Brown and Jorge Fitzgibbons. But hey, we're going to get that former president. New York City will give out free Apple AirTags to residents as part of an effort to pump the brakes on rampant car thefts Mayor Eric Adams announced on Sunday. Yes, it does have a bunch of B vitamins. Calling the GPS tracking devices a really amazing piece of ingenuity, the mayor said 500 of the gadgets donated by a local nonprofit will be doled out to New Yorkers, including in the NYPD's 43rd precinct in the Bronx, which has been hit particularly hard by carjacking scourge. The aggravated number of grand larceny autos continues to drive up crime in our city, said Adams, joined by police officials at a press conference, while noting that other major crimes, such as shootings, homicides, and robberies and larcenies, have been on the downturn. This simple device, the simple AirTag hidden in your car, and a car location that a person is unaware of, is an excellent tracking device, Adams said. It's easy to monitor. You can see in real time where the vehicle is located, which not only works well for you if you're trying to get your stolen car back, but also gives a nice, easy GPS signal if you say something untoward towards the government and they need to come back down and remind you that they have all the power. I think I was going through that about the same time Mogwai did. Here's a tracker, it's for the car thefts. Yeah, but the thefts, it's in no way a way to track you by the government. And Castor, that I can't say. But yeah, Mr. Scott also points out, it's free. It's free to you, man. Why don't you just take it? And again, the big problem here is, why don't you do something about the fact that you're in this situation? Kansas teacher rips district for diversity training amid teacher shortage. Repeated white shaming. From Joshua Q. Nelson over at Fox News. A Kansas teacher ripped a school district for their mandatory diversity training amid a teacher shortage and challenges to recruit talent. Kadron Sullivan was an English teacher employed by the Shawnee Mission School District for 15 years. I can no longer stay silent about the state of our schools. I will be attacked and threatened, but for the good of our district and the students with whom we are entrusted, I must speak out. This is too important, Sullivan wrote in an op-ed published by The Lion. She blasted the school district for the repeated white shaming and woke ideology. Sullivan alleges that the SMSD requires employees to attend diversity, equity, inclusion training, and workshops centered around critical race theory and invoking social justice causes to decolonize the classroom. There is repeated white shaming and a preoccupation with white people as the oppressor, including staff field trips, with a focus on systemic racism. The white saviorism and virtue signaling at DEI meetings is so condescending that many minorities and other staff members have stopped attending, Sullivan wrote. Our district is no longer academically focused. We're doing our students a disservice by allowing a biased curriculum to take over. If parents knew what goes on in our schools, the majority would be appalled. Well, and there is another aspect to this, and the teacher, the Sullivan here, brings up another good point of the fact that this is among a teacher shortage. And instances like this are really put in place, from what I can see, to try to weed out people like me, who look at CRT and say, this is a joke. Get rid of this. Because once we speak up like this in one of the seminars, or don't attend one of the seminars, the teachers union protection stops, and next thing you know, we're out of a job. Or if we can't even get a job, because we wouldn't go to the seminar, we wouldn't take the mandatory training or crap like that. But you know who is going to be welcoming those teachers with open arms? The private schools that are getting the vouchers. And the fact that, again, this is happening and parents would be appalled, that's the part of this that I hate. Daily Wire reports, man, I still got a bunch to go here. Frog and Toad showrunner discusses queer undertones in new children's series. You can't deny it. Dude, leave Frog and Toad alone. I loved that book when I was a kid. Frog and Toad are friends. Man. Huh, I just got a chat from DLive themselves. Might be scammy though. I might archive it just for the fun of it. The classic children's book, Frog and Toad, were adapted into a TV series, which the creator said has been infused with queer undertones. Leave Frog and Toad alone. They're literally... You know what's the worst part about this? They're not doing it by chemicals in the water, but they're literally turning the freaking frogs gay! Like, literally. Yeah, I'll run it through Archiver and see what happens. Because Archive, it'll kill the links. They're turning the frogs gay. Showrunner Bob Hagee discussed his aims for the series with the Daily Beast. It's almost as if you're lying on your tummy in your backyard, peering through the blades of grass, looking into a world that's at ground level, Hagee said, told the outlet in its approach to storytelling. It's like a diorama you'd make in grade school where you'd take a shoebox and cut a hole and make a scene inside. You'd peer into it and see the stacked foreground, midground, background with a richer scenic environment with selective focus, shadow, and light. The kids' show premiered on Apple TV Plus on April 28th and included content from late writer and illustrator Arnold Lobel, who created the beloved literary characters in the 70s. Episodes feature the two best friends and their adventures. Frog and Toad are friends, Frog and Toad together, Frog and Toad all year, and Days with Frog and Toad. I think there were more than that. Lobel's children, Adrienne and Adam Lobel, served as executive producers on the series, The Daily Beast noted. In a 2016 interview with The New Yorker, Adrienne Lobel says the books were the beginning of her father coming out. Lobel told his family he was gay in '74. Of course he did. Of course he did. I didn't know that, by the way. What we wanted to do here is create a faithful adaptation of the books, Hagee said in a new series. For people, a lot of readers of a certain age, Frog and Toad as characters seen through a queer lens is hugely important to them. Why? They can't leave anything alone, can they? From the Hill, more than 3,000 guns exchanged in New York in gift card exchange. From Stephen Newcomb. More than 3,000 guns, including more than 180 assault rifles and more than 1,650 handguns, were handed over in one day in New York during the weekend, with the state hosting a gun buyback event in exchange for gift cards. The collection of more than 3,000 guns on Sunday included 185 assault rifles, 1,656 handguns, and 823 long guns, according to New York Attorney General Letitia James. It continues an effort from James and state law enforcement to curb gun violence. If you're going to give up your means to protect yourself for a gift card, you deserve what's coming to you. Gun violence has caused so many avoidable tragedies and robbed off so many innocent New Yorkers, James said in a statement. By the way, the carjackers and the street muggers of New York City, thank you for your service. Now please turn over your wallet. That was Mice and Men. I like that one, by the way. That was a good one. The state announced the events earlier this month, saying it would accept both working and non-working unloaded firearms in exchange for gift cards, with no questions asked, including the question, by the way, of, do you own this firearm? Because if you are taking a firearm that you don't own, number one, you've committed firearms theft, which is a felony, and number two, you're also trafficking in weapons. And I believe there's a modifier for stolen weapons in New York, too. All so you can go to the Outback Steakhouse for $50 off. Alright, last couple. Public masturbator who viciously attacked jogger will not serve jail time thanks to Soros DA. That is not a typo either, by the way. From Courtney Wheel. A Texas predator who admitted he assaulted a woman and exposed himself to a child will not have to serve jail time thanks to a plea agreement orchestrated in part by Austin's leftist district attorney. In late June 2021, Lynn Isaac, an engineer living in Austin, was out for a morning run. Her typical route took her throughout her Travis Heights neighborhood, just across the Colorado from downtown. During her jog... Uh-oh. Did we get knocked off? Nope, we're still there. During her jog, Isaac spotted a man who appeared to be outdoors for a workout as well, but she quickly became uneasy because he wore a mask even as summer temperatures in Austin regularly reached over 90 degrees. Isaac was right to fear him. The man, later identified as Antonio Cordero Rios, began following her. After I passed you, I could sense your evil behind me, Isaac recalled in court. I remember looking behind me and seeing you sprinting towards me and grabbing me. Some of the details are too gruesome and unspeakable to say out loud. Evidence collected by Isaac's Apple Watch indicated that Cordero Rios chased Isaac for 7 long minutes that day and eventually caught up to her. He followed himself while she tried to escape, Isaac claimed. He really looked at me like I was his prey, she later told reporters. At some point during the incident, Isaac also suffered a horrific leg injury that required surgery. The injury kept her from walking for 4 months, and someday she will have to undergo a total knee replacement. So, okay, this actually is a little bit better. It still sucks, and it still sucks the fact that this guy's not going to serve jail time for doing this here. But when I first read the tweet that was associated with this and decided that I needed to look this up and find out what happened, they didn't say 7 minutes, they said 7 miles. Which, I mean, after you get this guy into prison for running after a woman for 7 miles, you also have to get him a ventilator and a medal for the fact that the report said that he was, like, this for the entire time that he was doing the chase. If he was doing this for 7 miles, yeah, I'd be afraid of him too. That's not a man, that's a machine. But he's out walking the streets again, playing with himself somewhere, looking at somebody they shouldn't be looking at. Last 2 things that I hate. From Jalopnik. So we're going to do some car stuff. Texas wants EV owners to pay a $200 annual fee for highway costs. From Lawrence Hodge. Texas may be making moves that could interrupt EV adoption. The Dallas Morning News reports that the state is currently proposing making EV owners pay a $200 annual fee to cover their share of the highway costs. The bill has many supporters and a few against it. under Bill SB 505, which has already passed the Texas State House. EV owners in the Lone Star State would pay $200 annually in vehicle registration fees. It seems to be implied that this bill would be in addition to a vehicle's existing registration. The bill's authors and backers say the fee for EV owners to pay their fair share of highway costs, something drivers of gas vehicles already do through the gas tax, they argue. So, realistically, I hate this because I hate the fact that we have excess tax to begin with. And this is using the government, their means, to discourage people from choosing the vehicle that they want. There are actually people out there that want EVs. I am not one of them. But I do not disparage or discourage anybody else that wants one. I've never been that way. If you want whatever it is that you want to buy, you should be able to buy, no matter how stupid, inane, or impractical it is. If you can afford it and afford the payments on it and afford the upkeep on it, you should be able to buy it. Now, is it fair? Actually, probably. Because as is mentioned in there, in most states, there's a gas tax. Now, it's been suspended in a few states, but the gas tax is what pays for your highway upkeep. You pay a little bit extra on a gallon of gas, and that goes into a big trust. And trust me, there's plenty of it coming out of most states, especially like this state, where they go back and they use that to pay out the independent contractors that build the road, because the government doesn't build the roads and upkeep the roads. And the people who are using the EVs aren't using, they're not paying that tax, and they're still driving on that road. I hate roads, so there's that aspect of it. There's that avenue to it. I'm a good libertarian. I hate the roads. But as far as this, while I still hate it for being excess government tax and government putting the scale on one kind of vehicle over another, I do agree that it's fair. That I do. And the last thing that I hate, from the Hill, first commercial smart gun with facial fingerprint recognition launches. It's going to be a big no from me. That's going to be a big no from me. From Nicole Fierro. A Colorado native has created the first commercial biometric gun with fingerprint and facial recognition. BioFire Technologies founder and CEO Kai Klepper started working on smart guns nearly 11 years ago in the wake of the Aurora Theater shooting. I've been to that movie theater, and so that's what's prompted me to start thinking about, rather than building a robot or some other piece of technology, what would make sense to think about some piece of technology on a gun, Klepper said. Klepper started working on the idea for a science fair project. Over a decade later, the BioFire smart gun has been crafted with home defense in mind. I've never talked to a gun owner that wanted their kid to fire a gun. We've never talked to a gun owner then. But we can provide them better tools to ensure there's no possibility for mistakes, that their kid will never have access to that firearm. I think that's really important. Well, see, the thing is I want my kids, if I don't have kids, obviously, but if I had kids, I want my kids to have access to the firearm. If I am not home, incapacitated in some way, or I already took the first bullet when somebody busted into the house, whether it be a criminal or an agent of the government, I want them to be able to grab the next one out of my desk and avenge me, or at least defend themselves. The smart gun is basically a firearm that's always locked by default, but it's still instantly accessible for the owner, Klopfer said. So if a kid finds it, if maybe an assailant takes it away from somebody, it's going to be unusable. We've chosen to use both fingerprints and facial recognition, where either the fingerprint or the face can be used to unlock the gun, because that makes it a lot more reliable. What do you want to bet that the face of every police officer, military officer, etc. will be into the database that feeds that gun, by the way? And you don't think this thing is going to be connected to the internet? You're out of your mind. BioFire Technologies unveiled the BioFire Smart Gun on April 13th. The gun is now available for pre-order. And I'm telling you right off the bat, that's a big no for me. That's not going to happen for me. Number one, as was pointed out, in before the lockpicking lawyer gets one. That's one side of this. Because criminals are going to find a way to get around the biometrics. They always have. They always will. But the other big important piece of information about this, with recognition technology, again, now when the state is coming in here to oppress, whether it be for actual criminal means or whether it's because you just said something about the police officer's wife and he decides that he needs his revenge on you. Will that police officer's face or badge be registered as a "you can't fire at this because this is a good guy with a gun, you can't do anything about us"? Or again, with this being most likely something that's connected to the internet. Hey, I hate the taxes I had to pay this year. Let's go, Brandon. Oh shoot, somebody just broke into my home. We're sorry, Charlie. You spoke out against the government. Your right to self-defense has been suspended until you apologize to your government official. You don't think that's going to happen? That's going to be a big no for me. Mogwai says the effer won't fire. Hold on, criminal sir, I have to reboot my gun. Caster says you forgot to ask the criminal their preferred pronouns before they robbed you. Caster says it's probably one of the 86,000 IRS agents that broke into your home too. Mr. Scott, all good concerns, by the way. You have been deemed violent. Siri, unlock my gun. Siri? Siri? Yeah, that's a hard no from me. That's gonna be a never gonna fucking happen. My nieces and nephew are in bed. Alright, we went long today, but that's things I like and things that I hate. Let's get out of here for the day. A lot of stuff happened here today. It's dark out already. I'm hungry. I did a fast today, but I didn't make it. I was going to try to go dinner to dinner, but yeah, by 3 o'clock this afternoon, I was just crying out for calories. I had good calories. I had broccoli and ranch dip. It was really good. If you guys, by the way, haven't tried, and you know, we'll throw one more thing I like in here for positivity before we head out of here, but if you guys see at your local convenience store, your local grocery store, the Doritos, either cheese and jalapeno dip or ranch and jalapeno dip, both of them come highly recommended from your host, J. Edgar. They are really good. They are really, 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 really good. Like, they are ridiculously good. So, have at it. That is official advice. Go try that. Especially if you like cheese dip or ranch dip. And being a person who typically doesn't do carbs except for on the weekends and eats more vegetables during the week, and places like chips and crap, I actually prefer the ranch dip over the cheese dip. Alright, let's head out of here. Outro. There it is. Alright, so that was fun. we had a lot of fun today. Things I like and things that I hate. And we went way longer than I thought I was going to. But we're going to head out of here for the day. I'm going to make some bratwursts that I got from the local store. They are, I think, bacon brats, if I remember correctly. And some raw vegetables. I'll have a salad or something, I think. I think that's what I'm going to do here. Anyway, enough about what's going on here. We'll see you here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Thank you, by the way, for everybody who starts showing up here. I was nervous when I moved that we weren't going to be able to pull the same kind of audience that we were able to in the morning show back when I had a very, very captive time slot and not a lot of other independent competition at the time. But we're starting to develop. We're starting to grow. You guys are starting to tell some friends, and we're getting more people in here. And the Rumble side is bringing more people in as well. So thank you guys for for coming in here, hanging out, chatting with me, and having a lot of fun, by the way, with what's going on here. There'll be some updates to come in the near future here, so sit tight for that. And that's on what we talk about at the beginning of the show every day. And my friends, the people that you should also be out listening to. But with that, we're out of here. Thank you. Take care. Good night. Be good. Be safe. Hug your family. Hug your friends. And we will see you here with what happens in the next 21 and a half hours. And until tomorrow, I am Jay Edgar. And this is Contemporary. Take care.